Call the meeting to order, and then the first order of business is 4000 Chemical Road. And is there anybody here online for that case?
Rob Stein here.
No.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You can't see me, but you can hear me at least. I'm Rob from Compass Sign, 4000 Chemical Road.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. Listen. I'm only 53, but some of this computer stuff is. I apologize.
Challenges all of us.
So, Mr. Stein, you're here. Is there anybody from Brandywine Metroplex LP here?
I think Eileen Bagden is on the call. Eileen, are you there? I did see her trying to access it.
I did. There's a Bagden E. No sound, no video.
Yeah, that's Eileen. Yes, she's from Brandywine, and then there should be somebody from either PayPal or a representative for PayPal. Thanks, guys, for being patient.
You're welcome.
No problem.
Wonder how I get my picture.
There's a thing down on the left-hand corner.
Oh, you're saying?
I'm afraid to press something. I don't want to get knocked off. Let's see. Integrated webcam. That's not it.
Do you see anything that says anything about video? Look for video at the bottom left.
All I have is mute and start video. Let's see.
Yeah, start video should, yeah.
Oh, there's my goofy face. All right. Thank God for my 12-year-old son. Oh.
We have Rob Stein and somebody you said, Rob, from Brandywine?
Bagden E. She was on there a little while ago.
She seems to be back, but no video, but she looks like she has sound capability.
That would be great.
I'm seeing her among participants. Are you there, Ms. Bagden?
I'd like to know, that there's authority from the owner for this to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dave Sander, looks like you're muted.
I'm now unmuted. The reason I've muted was because my dog was going a little crazy and I didn't feel like having everybody hear my 10-pound killer dog. Yeah, we need to know, we need something either in writing or testimony-wise from either the owner, of the property, letting us know that they have given authorization for you, Mr. Stein, to bring this application.
Church, the communion house thing.
Okay. Yeah, Eileen is supposed to be on the call.
She seems like she's on.
Paul, it's Rob Lewis. Do you have a minute?
I do.
Hey, I'm on the Plymouth Township Zoning Hearing Board for another matter, and it looks like you've got a sign application. And whomever it is, Bagden E., who's supposed to be representing Brandywine, can't connect. So the sign guy needs somebody to authorize him to proceed. Do you mind if I chime in on your behalf and try and fix this?
Please do.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Rob, who was that?
Her name is Eileen Bagden. She's the representative.
No, not you, Rob. Rob Lewis.
I'm
Rob
sorry.
Lewis, to whom were you speaking?
Thank you. That was Paul Comito, who's the Senior Vice President at Brandywine. As I think the board is aware in the past and currently, but not on this matter, I have represented Brandywine Real Estate Investment Trust as well as their affiliates, including Brandywine Metroplex LP. Hopefully you just heard a phone call with Paul Comito and he has authorized me as his attorney to represent him this evening due to the connection errors, and to authorize Rob to proceed with the application.
Okay. I will recommend that we go ahead on that basis. However, I would like to make a request of the board, and that is to impose a condition on approval, if you approve, that a writing be submitted from Brandywine Metroplex LP, I'm sorry, to the zoning hearing board authorizing this application. So that's fine, Rob.
Okay, that Rob, I'm sorry.
The
Two
other Rob,
Robs.
yeah.
Okay.
Before we get Mr. Sander, do you want to, now that we have authority to move ahead, do you want to introduce the case?
Certainly. This is the application of Rob Stein of Compass, that's COMPASS Sign Company, LLC, on behalf of Brandywine Metroplex LP. This is an application for a modification to the order of the zoning hearing board dated September 16th, 2013. At that time, it was the application of New Penn Financial / Todd Stiverson, STIVERSON. The applicant tonight would like to obtain a modification to allow a new sign to be attached to the roof of an existing structure. The property is located at 4000 Chemical Road in the Mixed Use Planning Development Zoning District. We're ready to proceed.
Okay, bear with me. What we're trying to do, there's a structure on the roof that we had gotten a variance for New Penn Financial. With this application, I did send in the sealed drawings from that original permit app. We had to penetrate the roof at 4000 Chemical Road. We're using the exact same structure at this time, and we would like to install a set of channel letters and logo for PayPal. And that's pretty much it. It's going to go on the existing structure. It's using the same exact electric. We are going to install during regular business hours another set of channel letters hooked to the same electric that was there for New Penn Financial. The sign is not moving. It's going back in the same place, just under a new name for a new company that took the space at Brandywine Realty Trust.
That's your application?
That's my application to install another set of channel letters and logo that read PayPal.
Thank you. I guess, do we have any questions from the board, starting with Ms. Pygot? I believe
Hi,
is with us.
good evening. I drove past that area today and I wasn't able to find 4000. Is that the Metroplex?
That's correct.
It is, okay. The sign that you're replacing, has it already been removed?
Yes, it's been down for a while.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pygot. Mr. Daly?
Have any other tenants or neighbors raised issues about this, Mr. Stein?
Not that I know of. I would have heard about it from Eileen Bagden. She runs a tight ship at that building. You would have to have so much square footage to go on the building, and I know Brandywine does not want to have a building that looks like Cotman Avenue. So they'll be probably the only sign on that building. We did all the other signs at the complex. The beautiful thing is that that structure is already on the roof, so we don't have to go and penetrate the roof again. At one point, they had talked about changing the location, and we said it would be much easier if we just kept it in the same location. And you have a really good vantage point from Mid-County Interchange, so everyone will see that sign. And it makes it a lot easier for us that we don't have to penetrate the roof again.
Okay. Will the illumination on the sign have any effect on passing traffic or anything? Or
None whatsoever.
Okay.
It's
That's the same as what.
Yeah, it's subtle. It's face-lit channel letters.
Mhm.
Again, PayPal has a blue color. it's not going to look like a spotlight, at an airport. We do not want cars affected. Plus, the building does sit back far enough that you're not going to see any residual light from Mid-County
Okay.
interchange.
Those are the only questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Oh, no problem.
Mr. Freeland,
No question, sir. Good job.
thank you. Mr. Raimondo,
No, that's just a quick question. Did you state the previous square footage of the sign to the new square footage? Does any of the square footage change?
Actually, it's about 5 square feet smaller. The footprint of the entire sign and logo is smaller than it was for New Penn Financial.
Okay.
We knew that was going to come up. My boss has been doing this for 30 years, so he did a little homework prior to this, leaving the office today. So it is a smaller footprint. Not a lot, but it is smaller.
Total square foot?
Yes, it's about 5 square feet smaller than the old sign.
Thank you. No further questions.
Yeah.
I remember when New Penn came before us, and one of the things was that New Penn, I believe, was around a 20%, occupied approximately 20% of the building. Do you know how much PayPal's going to occupy?
I will get you that information with that letter that you asked for. I would assume that it's that or greater. I know Brandywine has a rule that you have to have a lot of square footage for them to let you put a building sign. And I can't give you that answer right now. Eileen could answer that, and I could definitely get you that information tomorrow, after the rush, 9, 10 o'clock.
I just wanted to make it clear, you're just putting this back where the New Penn sign used to be, on the side facing the Blue Route, so you don't see it from Chemical Road or Germantown Pike or anything else.
That's correct. Yep,
It is illuminated.
that's correct. Facelit channel letters and logo.
And
LED illumination.
And it's 5 square feet less, because I think the last one was 96 square feet that we approved.
Yes, it depends, because some townships, the zoning officer will box the entire sign in or do the logo and the letters. The PayPal has a smaller footprint than the New Penn Financial.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want a billboard up there. That's not what we're about.
No, it's only one tenant. Understood.
Yeah.
I have no further questions. Mr. Sander, do you have any questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I assume, and I think this question was semi-answered with Mr. Raimondo. PayPal is a tenant of the building?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And because I have to draft a decision, I need to know the size of the sign. And I understand that some count only the area of the letter, some count the box around the letters. I need to know what the maximum square footage of the sign that you're going to put up there is, so I can put that in the decision.
Sure. Give me 30 seconds. Got my little calculator ready. Let's see here.
Mr. Sander, according to the plans on page 2, it says 68.1 square feet.
Well, here's how I did it, and I'm giving more than I should. The PP, the logo, is 56 inches tall. So if I take that and then I do the overall, which is around 19 feet, I come in at around 89.6 square feet, where New Penn was around 96 total square feet. Now the difference is the PayPal, the wording, has a lot less area than New Penn Financial, the way that was situated on the rails. But if I'm taking it overall, if I take the 56 inches by the 19'2", I'm at 89.6 square feet, which is slightly smaller than New Penn Financial.
Okay, that certainly answers my question.
Okay.
Do you know what provision or condition of the prior approval for New Penn that you are seeking to modify with this application?
Well, and the zoning officer, whoever helped me in the office was wonderful, because I forgot one of the applications. It was more or less that he was telling me that we're doing this because it's a name change. That was the main reason, because it went from one to the other. We're putting it in the same exact spot. It's actually smaller. It's just a different name. The actual wording from the township ordinance, I do not know offhand. But I was told that I had to go for a variance because it was a name change. For legality reasons, they had to take it from New Penn to PayPal. I couldn't just go and get a permit. Yep, go ahead.
Let me ask Dave Conroy that question.
Yeah, according to the decision from 2013, it basically states right before the signatures, the variance is conditioned upon the applicant's compliance with the testimony and exhibits presented at the public hearing on August 19th, 2013. So this, obviously the PayPal exhibit wasn't presented in 2013. That's why they need the variance or need
Gotcha.
the modification.
Yeah, there will be a similar condition if the board chooses to grant relief. There will be a similar condition on this one. Just remind the board that, again, if the board grants relief, that it be conditioned on receipt of a letter from Brandywine Metropex LP authorizing Mr. Stein to bring this application.
Sounds good. And Dave, thank you. You were the one that helped me. I forgot your name.
My job.
Nope. I told you that, some townships aren't as nice as you were. So
Nice. Wow. Okay. Thanks.
The nice township.
Any further questions, Mr. Sander?
No further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Dave Conroy, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment either in support or in opposition, or just comment, period, about this application? Do we see none?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Lewis, just really quickly, and if I may, Mr. Sander as well, if the applicant is seeking simply to amend one of the conditions of approval of the 2013 grant of a variance, I think it might be appropriate simply to ask, to the extent necessary, to incorporate the record from 2013, just to make a complete record.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Rob. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That would probably, I would recommend that as a part of the motion to incorporate the record from the 2013 zoning hearing board hearing.
Okay, since we have no public comment, do we have a motion from the board?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the request as stated.
With the conditions as stated, Mr. Aprile.
Sure, but the conditions as stated.
I second that motion.
Thank you. All right. So let's have a roll call vote. Ms. Pagat,
I'm in favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile,
In favor.
In favor? No,
Serrano,
I'm in favor.
and the chair votes in favor. Good luck, but get us the letter, and we'll go from there. But good luck with the sign. It's a nice
thank
building.
you guys very, very much. And I will definitely get that letter over. I'll even find out what footprint they have, how much they have there, how much square footage.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. I appreciate all your help, and
Thank you.
talk to you soon.
Good to see a new tenant coming in there. I guess the second case we're doing is the Western Development Company. Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Turning now to the Western application. This is the application of Western Development Company for CSW Arbor, ARBOUR Square, Roman numeral 3, Plymouth Meeting, LP. This is an application for variances from section 1602.2, 1602.A.3, and 1602.2.D. The variances are to allow a site monument sign located on an adjacent property 15 feet from the curb line, where a minimum of 25 feet is required, and to allow directional signs as detailed on the submitted sign plan. Property is located at 201 and 215 Plymouth Road in the Interchange Development Zoning District. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Mr. Lewis, there you are.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Lewis from Kaplan Stewart. Now the matter I was here to attend. Thanks for having me this evening. Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Chairman, are you ready for me to proceed? If so, may I share my screen? I think one, it's a better picture than looking at my face, but two, it'll make it much easier for me to do my introduction. I do have with me a representative of Westrom Development, and the applicant this evening, Michael Meyer. So if he can be unmuted, we will obviously need to have him sworn, and I will present him shortly.
You may share your screen.
Thank you. Make sure I get the right one. Here we go. That's not the right one.
Indeed.
There we go. Sorry about that. That should be better. Great. Again, Rob Lewis, Kaplan Stewart. I'm actually privileged enough to represent Westrom Development and its affiliate, CSW Arbor Square 3 Plymouth Meeting LP. They are the owner of 215 Plymouth Road. I also represent 201 Plymouth Road LLC, and on my shared screen right now should be the deed for 201 Plymouth Road. I represent them as well, and therefore have authority this evening on both of their behalves, because both properties are the subject of the proceeding this evening. Typically, as you know, I like to have pre-marked exhibits. We can't do that any longer with the virtual format, and so the board will permit me to simply kind of run through my exhibits on the screen. I believe I've provided all of these electronically to Mr. Conroy. And do this as a brief introduction and offer of proof. Then I think you'll understand the application much better, and Mr. Meyer can then testify and hopefully accept my opening as his testimony, answer a couple questions from me, and then I'll turn it over to the board for any questions that you might have. Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable. Thank you.
Great. Hopefully this now shows, I just put up what I would say would be A2, and that is the deed to 215 Plymouth Road. And then next I will put up the Google aerial view of the properties that are the subject of this proceeding. You can see tagged in the Google view 201 Plymouth Road. Obviously Google being behind by a little bit, you don't see the construction. If you can see my cursor, this general area here is 215 Plymouth Road, immediately adjacent. So we're here tonight about signs, but if you'll give me a moment or two, I think some background will really help understand this application. I don't believe that we've had to be in front of this board for this piece of property, even though 215 has been the subject of a number of applications before Plymouth Township Council. I don't think we were ever in front of the zoning hearing board. But generally speaking, more than 5 years ago, Westrom, and then the owner of 201 Plymouth Road, who at that point was Peter Cross, they approached Plymouth Township about rezoning these properties. They both were zoned A residential, and they were seeking to have them zoned Interchange Development District, to be more compatible with their location, but also with the recent developments along Plymouth Road. After some very long discussions and negotiations with the township did ultimately agree that rezoning was proper for these properties, but they agreed really to do so under two very specific conditions. One of those conditions was adoption of a sinkhole ordinance. I think everybody knows about the sinkhole problems with Plymouth Creek. and several years ago when the sinkhole out on Plymouth Road swallowed the culvert. So making sure that any development took into account any sinkholes in that area and took appropriate measures was certainly important to Township Council. But the second condition was that the two owners enter into an agreement for cross-access. We prepared and ultimately the township adopted the sinkhole ordinance, and then we entered into a lengthy agreement between the property owners to provide that cross-access. That cross-access not only, as I'll talk about, provided a secondary access or second means of ingress and egress to each of these properties, but it also provided the structure for ultimate development of the two sites, because there are no utilities anywhere near these two sites to bring water, to bring sewer, and so forth to these sites was quite a challenge. So that agreement between those property owners allowed that to happen. The Westrum tract, which is 215 Plymouth Road here, prior to that shared access agreement, had only frontage on Corson's Lane, which is this very small access road here, technically a public street. Corson's Lane then only has right in and right out access to Germantown Pike, right near all of the interchanges. In fact, if you're getting off of the East-West Turnpike and take the Plymouth Road side, or sorry, the Germantown Pike side of that access, it will swing you around just above Corson's Lane. But that access certainly is insufficient for a large development. Equally difficult, 201 Plymouth Road only had a single access point, that access point being immediately adjacent to that culvert we talked about along Plymouth Road. And this access point is further constrained because of the off-ramp coming down off of 476 in that location, and some site distance issues there, which I'll show you momentarily. So the reason the township wanted the cross-access agreement more than anything was for emergency services purposes, to make sure that any development here had more than one point of access for should any emergency arise. And certainly from the development standpoint, it's much better to have the ability to access each of those developments from both Plymouth Road and ultimately Germantown Pike or Corson's Lane. 215 Plymouth Road is now the given address to the Westrum tract, even though its frontage is on Corson's Lane and the access really was to Germantown Pike. That simply shows you really recognizes that the principal access for the Westrum development is at 201 Plymouth Road, is off of Plymouth Road, because that does allow traffic to access this site from a host of different directions, whereas the access from Germantown Pike being right in, right out really was not conducive to the type of development here. So emergency services and the postmaster agreed to provide 215 Plymouth Road as the mailing address for that site. 215 has now been developed. If you drive by it, it looks pretty spectacular. It's a 210 unit assisted living and memory care facility. In fact, the certificate of occupancy was just issued back on, I think, July 3rd. 201 Plymouth Road is currently undeveloped, but it is the subject of a pending land development application that has been before council for quite some time, but at some point may proceed, and in all likelihood will be developed as a upscale hotel product. So we're here this evening because the owners of both of those properties would like to install a shared sign at that principal shared access. So what I'm going to do is click over to the first sheet of our signage plan. So what you see here on this plan is the Westrum development on 215 Plymouth Road, as well as that shared access drive. It heads off screen left. This is Corson's Lane in the bottom, the lower left corner. But that shared access drive comes all the way around the Westrum development and then heads out to Plymouth Road. You can see the stub in the center of that access drive that will provide principal access if and when 201 Plymouth Road is developed. Then the access road comes straight out to Plymouth Road itself. So the two owners are seeking to install a single entrance monument in this location here. And in fact, that type of entrance monument is permitted in the Interchange Development District. In fact, the Interchange Development District permits 2 entrance signs at any single access point, and each of them is permitted to be up to 150 square feet. The reason we're here, however, is because, as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, this access road is entirely on 201 Plymouth Road. None of it lies on ground owned by Westrom or by the owner of 215 Plymouth Road. So necessarily by your definitions, if we were to advertise any use on 215 Plymouth Road in that location, it would constitute an off-premise advertising sign, otherwise known as a billboard. So the relief we're seeking is simply to allow the user of 215 to be located on that entrance monument, even though that entrance monument is located at 201 Plymouth Road. This is obviously the only location where signage can be erected to notify any of the residents or guests or deliveries and emergency services of the location of 215 Plymouth Road. So that's why we're seeking this location now. I will also now go to page 2 because I think it's important to see the sign itself. And these are all in your packet. It took several months of negotiations between these owners really to come up with a design that they felt worked for both of them. But I think what you'll see in the end, the result here is a very, sorry, let me see if I can find the actual facade of that sign. A very nice looking sign that although your ordinance would allow 150 square feet, the sign itself is only 36 square feet. Here we go. Why is that not? I'm not sure why the site monument sign is not showing up in that corner. I apologize. You can see the section of it here. I will grab the other view of it momentarily to show that to you. But again, the code would permit 150 square feet in this location. The property owners have agreed to have a sign that, as you can see with the stone and the cladding around it, is consistent with the architecture of the existing Westrom product. But the entirety of that sign is only 36 square feet. One panel would be dedicated to the Westrom, or now Pinnacle development, and the other panel would be dedicated to the future user of 201 Plymouth Road. So we are not seeking any dimensional variances. We're not looking to, in terms of the sign itself, we're not looking to increase the size over what your ordinance permits. The only other variance we're seeking with respect to this sign, and I'll come back to the first sheet, has to do with the physical location. The Interchange Development District is a little bit different than most of your commercial districts. The Interchange Development District prescribes that any access sign should be set back 25 feet from the curb line. We're requesting a dimensional relief to allow the sign to be set back 15 feet from that curb line, which is consistent with your other commercial districts, but it's also for very good reason. What you can now see here is a Google Street View heading from Germantown Pike on Plymouth Road. As the traffic from the right is exiting off of 476, and so I'm sitting basically under the overpass on Plymouth Road from this view. The entrance that we've been speaking of is under construction in this photo in the middle. And you can see the curb line also in this photograph. If a sign were set back 25 feet from that curb line, it would be completely invisible until somebody gets at least past the signal box here and the mast arm. And at that point, you likely have passed your opportunity to turn into that entrance, forcing somebody to go down and either turn into the townhouse development or Sal Peon's development, and turn around and try and come back. Obviously, that's not what anybody wants, that additional traffic. At 15 feet, that sign will be at least visible when you come off One, if you come off 476 as you're making that turn. Two, if you're coming down Plymouth Road at a reasonable distance to allow you to make that turn. Again, if we went with 150 square foot sign, which is permitted, sure, maybe we could set it back a little bit further, and it would still be visible. But again, we were trying to be tasteful and considerate, both to the community and to the township, and not install a sign of that magnitude. It just didn't seem appropriate in this location. So instead, we are going with a much smaller sign, and requesting that it be set back 15 feet from the curb line. The last piece of relief that we are seeking this evening, we've put in the application, quote, to the extent necessary. Directional signs are permitted in your ordinance, but the ordinance states that any directional sign is limited to identifying buildings within a development. For example, the prior application, Metroplex, when completed, will have 3 different buildings. And you could have a directional sign saying building 1, building 2, building 3 to direct traffic around the site. Here, we are asking to have directional signs that, for the exact same reason, will try and direct traffic within the Pinnacle development. As you can see, those signs: main entrance, deliveries, resident parking, and employee parking, simply to help people navigate the site so they're heading the correct direction. And here we come back to that site plan. You can see that anybody coming in on the shared access drive, they'll be able to come to the front of the building. They'll be identified by those directional signs, but if somebody is coming to do deliveries, they can then be directed all the way around to the rear of the building. So not certain that relief was required, but just because of that specific language in the ordinance, we wanted to request relief for those directional signs to the extent necessary. So that's my presentation. As I mentioned, I do have Michael Meyer here. I think we should have him sworn before I ask him any questions.
We unmute Paula.
Yeah.
Michael, can Paula will swear you in.
I just want to unmute myself.
Okay.
Get your full name for the record, please.
It's Michael Mayer. It's M-A-I-E-R.
Raise your right hand, please, sir, so I can swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Michael, with whom are you currently employed?
Western Development.
And in what capacity are you employed by Western Development? What's your title?
I'm a vice president for development approvals.
And you're authorized to speak on behalf of Westrum and its affiliate, the owner of 215 Plymouth Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Michael, are you familiar with the plans and the aerials that I shared with the zoning hearing board this evening?
Yes, I am.
And you're generally familiar with the properties located at 201 and 215 Plymouth Road?
Correct.
Michael, and am I also correct that you were here for my long-winded opening where I represented certain facts about 201 and 215 Plymouth Road, as well as the proposed signs that we're seeking relief for this evening?
Yes.
Michael, if you were called to testify this evening to each of those individual facts that I presented to the zoning hearing board, would you testify to those facts as I have presented them to the zoning hearing board this evening?
Yes, I would.
Any corrections, any additions or subtractions to those representations?
No.
Michael, we are seeking zoning relief, and a critical component to any zoning relief is to represent to the board that if the relief were to be granted, that it would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. If the board were inclined to grant the relief we're seeking this evening, do you believe that it would be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare?
I do not. In fact, I think just the opposite. I think not having this ability to have proper signage, could cause those things. So we're anxiously looking for this.
Excellent. So if that's acceptable to the board, I think Mr. Mayor has adopted my opening, and I think it would be best for us to simply answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Pygott, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I was just curious, Rob, did you say that there was another entrance off of Germantown Pike, a small road?
Yes, so technically our entrance is here. If my screen is still being shared, our entrance is to a public road is Corson's Lane. This
Right.
is Corson's Lane.
Okay.
But Corson's Lane then comes out and access. So this is Corson's Lane, Ron Davis Automotive. Corson's Lane does come all the way out to Germantown Pike. We are not even permitted a sign in that location because we don't own that ground. That ground is owned by PennDOT. So even if we were looking to have a sign in that location, we couldn't do so.
Okay. Would visitors have access to that though? Can they get to 215 from Corson's Lane?
They can, if anybody knows about it, particularly employees may find that's better for them depending where they're coming from. But certainly if somebody wanted to, they could. Our address is 215. And so when you go on the website, all guests and visitors and deliveries, they're going to know our address as 215 Plymouth Road. And when you plug that into GPS, that's going to take you down to Plymouth Road.
Right, okay. And you mentioned that the sign, I don't know if it's the monument sign or the directional sign, that's going to have 2 panels. I think it was the
That's correct.
directional. Okay.
There it is.
What is it? Okay. And you said it's going to be, what is it going to be, blank on one side until?
This bottom where it says Hotel Plymouth, yes, we would simply leave that blank, that panel blank until there is a user of 201 Plymouth Road.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pygott. Mr. Daly?
Yeah, Mr. Lewis, the monument sign will have writing on both sides. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, same. All right, same wording.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it then becomes effective for traffic from both directions.
Well, right.
Is great.
Have there any potential effect on neighbors or nearby tenants, if there are any, to be involved in this, or you got any negative feedback from any source?
Nothing. And again, there are only 1 or 2 homes left along that stretch of Plymouth Road. And given the minor nature of the sign being 36 square feet, I don't think it will have any impact on those homeowners. Again, trying to be tasteful. If we did put up a 150 square foot sign in that location, that might be a little bit more visible, or I certainly don't think anybody driving home at night would want to see that every single night. But at 36 square feet, and given the architecture of this sign, I certainly don't think it'll have any impact on anyone on Plymouth Road.
And what kind of illumination will the sign have?
This is internally illuminated.
Will the directional signs in the driveway area be illuminated as well?
They will, because as you know, even during winter time, normal business hours, you'll need those to be able to be illuminated, to be able to be visible.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. No further questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Mr. Curley?
Hey, Rob, can you just confirm what is the zoning for this property where the sign's going to go on?
Interchange Development District.
So it's not resident. There's residential down the road though, isn't there?
There is, and if I'll come back, let me just show you the overall aerial here. So if my screen is showing, 201 Plymouth Road is here. There are 2 or 3 remaining residential single-family homes along Plymouth Road that are, I believe, are all rental units. One may be owner-occupied. I'd had many discussions with those homeowners about other projects over the years. It's the only reason I know that information. But a very small pocket of that. Obviously, the very large park development is across the street, and then the townhouse Cold Point Village is adjacent there. So there are 2 or 3, but not many.
So 201 and 215 are both not residential.
That's correct. And this in the future, we believe that where Ron Davis Automotive is here, this will ultimately also be interchange development. I believe it's zoned like limited industrial now. So very, very consistent with the neighborhood in terms of what we're doing.
The placement of the monument sign is 15 feet from the curb
Correct.
line,
That's correct.
and that's consistent with other commercial developments.
That's correct.
No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Armando?
My audio's cutting out. Is anybody saying me next?
Yes, you're up,
Okay.
Dave.
Just that, and we confirm that there's no traffic visual obstruction if somebody's trying to make a left out of there or anything like that?
We represented to council when we presented this zoning application to them that we would present Dave and or Lonnie Manai, the township engineer, with the site triangle to make sure that there is no impact to that site triangle, somebody trying to make a left.
Mr. Lewis, I don't think you can make a left out of there. I think they put.
I don't
bollards
think
in
you
the
can
middle.
right now either, but it's still, if you're making a right-hand turn, you're going to be looking that way. So we will provide it, and you never know what people are going to do. The last thing we want to do is put a sign somewhere that it could potentially cause a safety hazard. So we'll provide that site triangle information.
All right. Yeah, that's only one concern. Just make sure it doesn't block any China traffic sight line, causing any type of as long as you can see, making that left or a right and seeing if anybody's coming, that would be a concern. And just general knowledge question: has construction started, break ground on these things, or what's the schedule on that?
On 215 Plymouth Road
The
is open.
development.
215 is open now. The certificate of occupancy was issued a little over a month ago, so there's
Everything's good. Okay, they're all right. Good. I didn't.
Yeah.
All right,
201 Plymouth Road is a little further behind. They've had some site constraints dealing with how to appropriately address the sinkhole issue and things like that's there. That application has been pending for a while, but that's probably another year off.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I guess first is, does the sign get built even if the hotel's delayed or doesn't get built, or
Yes.
does the sign for get built right away?
Yeah, the sign will get built immediately because it's necessary to identify the Westrum project, the Pinnacle project. And as I mentioned before, for now, that one panel will simply remain empty. And then if and when 201 is developed, that panel will get filled in with whatever that username is. But this is necessary now to identify Pinnacle.
It doesn't show anything, but is there going to be anything that says it's 201 or 215 on that sign, or is it just going to say Pinnacle and Hotel?
As of right now, I think the intent was simply to have Pinnacle and Hotel. Dave might be able to know that answer, whether or not emergency services will require that we have a street address number. And if we do, it'd likely end up being on the brick.
I'm assuming more than likely there'll have to be a number on there, only because you're not going to be able to see the hotel probably from the road or Plymouth Road, as well as Arbor Square or Pinnacle, I mean. So I'm assuming they're going to, that's going to be a comment in the future, guaranteed.
Yeah. My guess is that emergency services will ask to have a number placed on the base of that monument sign indicating the street address.
Okay. And like I said, when I drove down the other day, there was definitely bollards or something in the middle of Plymouth Road, so you couldn't make a left, or you couldn't make a left coming out of the site.
Correct.
Yeah, I assume they're
That was the
permanent.
plan for the land development. Whether or not the public adheres to that, we'll wait and see.
It'll be interesting if you want to drive it over and risk ruining your car, but
Yep.
But they're there. So anyway, and did I have any other? I have a question for Dave Conroy. Because in the notice that was sent out, the public notice, it just says the variance for the site monument sign and not for the directional sign. So is it your opinion that the directional sign is permitted and doesn't need a variance, Dave?
I was leaving that up to the zoning hearing board. I put it in the ad. 1602, I believe 2D. Just let me double check that.
The section is noted, but it's not in the narrative, I guess is what I'm.
Yeah, 1602.2.d is the one identified for the directory sign.
Right. And I basically just stated to allow directional signs as detailed on submitted site plan. I was leaving it up to the zoning hearing board and to Rob Lewis to explain if, I don't want to put words in people's mouths. Let's put it that way. So I was leaving it up to the zoning hearing board as well as Rob to explain that to you guys. That's all.
So I have no further questions. Mr. Sander, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One note to the segue from Mr. Conroy. I would recommend that if the board grants relief, that they also grant relief from that section 1602 point, the last section reference, 1602.2D.
1602.2.d.
D, only because if somebody takes a look at the exact language of the ordinance, it says, well, they can only identify buildings, and these signs identify where visitors should go and don't identify buildings. Someone may say, well, then we're allowed to do that too, or it sets a precedent that you don't want to set. So I would recommend that if the board grants relief, it includes that specific relief as well. The only question I had was the number of those directional signs. I think the application said 3, Rob. Did you say, I thought you might have said 4 during your.
No, there should only, I believe there's only 3 and they're identified on the plan.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. So it'd be 3 directional signs plus the monument sign.
Correct.
Okay. And Rob, let me ask you, will the applicant agree, and I think you will because I think you testified to it, will they agree to a condition that the applicant will provide a site triangle calculation for the monument sign and place the sign outside of that site triangle?
Correct. Yes, we will.
Great. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Mr.
Mike,
Conroy, anything further? Oh, sure, Ms.
I
Pygott.
just have one question, Rob. In order to obstruct the sign or put up the monument sign, do you have to cut back some of those bushes in order for it to be visible?
I'm sure that some minor, maintenance will be done, but we obviously have to make sure it's only what's on our property. We're on 201's property. A lot of this vegetation that you see here is not on our property, so we don't have the right to touch it.
So that's not on, is that right in front of the shared access road though? Is that the?
You can't see, there is some space where my cursor is over here, which is where the sign would be. And so to the extent that vegetation is on our site, we will certainly clean that up.
Okay.
But a bunch of this vegetation is actually on PennDOT right of way.
Oh, okay. No, I thought that those trees were going to obstruct the view of the sign. That one right behind your cursor.
Yep.
Did that.
So hopefully we can clean this up enough and the 15 feet works out perfect because you're talking about a sign roughly.
That looks closer than 15 feet to the curb if that's where
it's close. Yeah, it's close. And so again, yeah, I mean, we're trying to be reasonable with our setback. We would love to have it closer, but that might present site triangle issues. So we went with 15 feet because we think that's what's safe. And so we'll do our best to deal with the vegetation. And if we have to seek some approval from PennDOT to cut a couple limbs down, we will.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Conroy, do you have anything further?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Is there any public comment, either in support or in opposition, or just public comment from, I see Mr. Reichert has his hand up. Can we unmute him?
Yeah, 1 second. All right, I'm muted.
Mr. Reichert?
Question. Why can't the township make those trees come down? Even on PennDOT's property, I would think that the township should have some say in how that tree could just cause all kinds of problems because you're your sign might be there and then the tree's going to grow over. So I think the township should have some say. I don't care who owns the property.
Hold on, for one second, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The person is identified as David Reichert, and
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet a lot of money that that was not David Reichert who made that statement.
No, it's his wife,
And what is your name, ma'am?
Bonnie.
Bonnie. Okay, so
Where
Bonnie,
do you live?
Excuse me?
And what's your address?
1517 Plymouth Boulevard.
Thank you.
That's already a dangerous intersection.
It's already dangerous, and I don't understand why the township doesn't have some control over the trees. I would think the township could say they have to come down because, all right, they trim them back, and the next year they're out there again. To me, that is a dangerous thing. I don't quite understand why the township can't do that.
well.
I love your support.
Yeah, the easy answer is that PennDOT, which is the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, which is a state agency, owns that property. So that the township doesn't have jurisdiction over the state to tell them to remove that. Now, I think what may be able to be done is somebody gets on the phone, makes a call to PennDOT and says, you guys have a site visibility problem over there that's causing a lot of people problems. Can we get this trimmed back or cut back? But the only thing they can do is suggest or request it. The township can't go onto somebody else's property and actually cut those trees back.
Okay.
So maybe Mr. Conroy can deliver that message to the township folks.
Will do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further comments? Is there anyone else from the public who would like to comment? Guess I don't see any. So if we have no further comment and nothing further from the board, do we have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to grant the variance as amended in 1602.2, 1602.A3, and 1602D as requested.
Thank you.
Just conditioned on the site triangle submission and with the monument sign. That's the only condition I have.
Absolutely. Conditioned on the site triangle approval, traffic study, however you want to phrase it, that it's a safe distance where people have turns and clear vision.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Excuse me, did you say me, Mike?
I was asking, did we have a second?
Oh, I second.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have a motion from Mr. Ramondo, seconded by Ms. Pygott. Okay. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott?
Okay, I think signage is a necessity, so therefore I'm in favor.
Mr. Daly?
He's muted.
All right, I'm muted.
Am I okay? Can you hear me?
You're on.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I'm in favor.
Mr. Aprile, who I see is muted.
What's the name? Aprilli. Okay, gotcha.
Oh.
He's muted.
Get unmuted anyway. How did I
You're
get
muted, Tom. You're muted. Your
How
vote.
did I get muted?
I don't know,
I
but
didn't say
you're
anything.
muted.
I'm for
Thank
the
you.
proposal. Thanks.
Mr. Ramondo?
In favor.
Thank you. The chairman votes in favor of the application. So congratulations, good luck, and hopefully we can do something about making that site better visible as you're coming down Plymouth Road. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
You too, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay. Next matter on the agenda is 529 Plymouth Road. We need Mr. Lewis to stop sharing your screen. There we go. Thank you. Mr. Solicitor, would you
Thank you,
read the
Mr. Chairman. Certainly. This is the, I may butcher some names, and Ms. Carney's here to help me. This is the application of Almir A. Pereira and Guilherme B. Capani. Not bad.
It's good. Present.
This is an application for variances from sections 500, 502B, 502F, 502G, and sections 1600, 1603B, and 1604A of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to allow a business office with a front yard setback of 39.2 feet where a minimum of 40 feet is required, to allow 48.3% impervious coverage where a maximum of 25% is allowed, to allow 51.7% green space where a minimum of 75% is required, to allow a 30 square foot double-sided externally illuminated sign closer than 15 feet from the curb line and within the street right-of-way where a maximum of 125 square inches is allowed. This concerns the property located at 529 Plymouth Road in the A residential zoning district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bernadette, you are here tonight.
Yes, Bernadette Kearney from Hamburg Group here on behalf of the applicant. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I've been having some problems with my audio. And Mr. Sander, I believe that Mr. Glassman, the township solicitor, may have sent you a letter. That
He did.
he did.
He
Yeah.
did.
So-
And you know what? I printed it out, and wouldn't you know, I don't have it right here with me.
Well, just to explain to the board, if you hadn't received the letter, Mr. Glassman, the township solicitor, had sent a letter explaining that the township and the applicant was agreeable to this. That I'm trying to. The condition was the applicant shall construct sidewalk curbs and widen the road at the subject property. As the subject property is the only property in the immediate vicinity that does not currently have, or there are no plans in place for sidewalks, curb, or widened road. As Mr. Sander had indicated, this property is located at 529 Plymouth Road, and it's zoned A residential. And I want to show you a plan, and this is the first time I'm actually allowed to share my screen, so I'm hoping I'm going to do this right. Okay. There we go.
Nice.
Yes. Now I just have to figure out how to turn the pages. Okay. Yeah. So when you look at this property on the tax map, it's this property in yellow. So it's a uniquely located property. It's a residentially zoned, and all around it is office laboratory. So we're on the zoning map, we're that A residential property. So strangely enough, Al will testify that currently his office for Next Level Construction Inc. is located at 527 Plymouth Road. So you'll see on this aerial, this is his current office, and there are plans in the township that everybody has to come out of that office. They're no longer extending leases or offering leases because they're going to demolish the building, so all the tenants have to leave. So we saw that this property, the 529 Plymouth Road, was for sale. And Mr. Akoff is also on the line, the broker for the property, and he will testify. So Al decided he would put in an offer on the property to be used as his office. So basically he would be leaving 527, which all the tenants are leaving because they're demolishing that building, and move over to 529 Plymouth Road. And Mr. Akoff's going to testify. He tried to sell this residentially, but it's like you were talking about with Rob Lewis. It's really like the last property that zoned residential. And Mr. Reed, the property owner, is in a nursing home right now. So at this point, we do think it would be appropriate for this property to be zoned office laboratory. And when we started this process, it was during COVID. And we decided we would just come in for the zoning hearing board application. So it's been a while and we're here. And we have 3 witnesses tonight: Bob Akoff, who's the broker for the property, Nick Rose, who's the engineer for the property, and Al, who is one of the equitable owners of the property. So I don't know if you want to swear them all in at the same time.
That's probably easiest.
Yeah.
Are they all unmuted?
Paul is unmuted. It doesn't look like.
I am.
Nick Rose here. I might appear as Leah Rose, but I'm actually Nick Rose.
I unmuted.
Okay.
Al Pereira here. I am muted too.
Okay, so I don't have on the screen though. I'm trying to see who is going to be speaking. I see Al. Who's the other person? Rob Akoff?
Yes.
And Nick Rose, correct?
And the other person, I don't have that name.
Nick Rose.
Nick Rose, okay. Mr. Rose, can you spell your full name for the record?
It's Nicholas, Nicholas, and then Rose like the flower, Rose.
Okay, thank you. And then the other person testifying, Mr. Akoff, your full name, please.
Robert Acuff, ACUFF.
Thank you. And the third person, Amir?
Almir Pereira. ALMIR PEREIRA.
Thank you. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
I do.
Thank you.
And I'm going to start with Mr. Akoff since he's sitting in his car. I want to be able to get him home. And Mr. Akoff, can you explain by whom you are employed and briefly describe your educational and employment history?
I am employed at Remax Services in Bluebell. I am a Penn State graduate, actually, and have been in the business for about 35 years.
And you're the broker of record for this property, correct?
That's correct.
And have you previously testified before other zoning hearing boards?
Many times, yes.
And have you been accepted as an expert real estate broker before those boards?
I have.
And I'd like to offer Mr. Akoff as an expert and real estate broker.
Any questions from the board on Mr. Akoff's qualifications?
No.
Okay. Then without objection, Mr. Akoff is accepted as an expert in real estate brokerage.
And Mr. Akoff, where's the property located?
It's on Plymouth Road, right beyond the Turnpike Exchange. And it's basically in the middle of an office laboratory district, right across from the elementary school.
And you're familiar with the area?
Very much so. My office is about 3 miles away.
And can you explain to the board what you've done to market and sell the property as a residential property?
So I know the daughter of the owner rather well, and the property's been vacant for a few years. Her father's in a nursing home, and it's in a great state of disrepair. So we do a lot of development work also. And so initially, in addition to we realized it really wasn't habitable as a residence. So our main focus was on trying to find whether or not somebody would purchase it as a small development parcel. I actually was before the board about 1.5 years ago to discuss the potential for residential development. We marketed it to the builders in the area. We spent quite a bit of time and effort trying to find someone that would purchase it, and we had no success whatsoever. Then Al approached us about this concept, and we believe that it fits perfectly within the overall district of that area.
And can you just explain briefly why, in your opinion, there is not a residential market for this property?
Well, if you look at this property, it sits in the middle of the field of office laboratory development. And so we found that no homeowner would want to purchase a property there, renovate it, with the likelihood that it'll end up being virtually surrounded by offices or laboratory in the future.
And this is an aerial of the property and the surrounding uses on that side of Plymouth Road, correct?
That's correct.
And can you explain a little bit how Al became interested in the property?
Well, he actually, I believe, drove by and called me one day. And so we had a number of conversations about the property. I've studied the zoning ordinance pretty carefully. I know what the potential is, and it made sense for this type of use to be put there. And I think it'll turn it from basically a rundown property into an asset along Plymouth Road.
And in your opinion as the broker, is the authorization of the variance necessary to enable reasonable use of the property?
I think it's the only potential use that makes any sense. That's correct.
And in your opinion as the broker, was the need for the variance created by the owner or the applicant, or the circumstances surrounding where the property is located and its zoning?
Well, over time, that area has changed quite significantly. And, Mr. Reed had lived there for many, many years. And I think as the office park developed and the ground in front of that was zoned office laboratory, it really diminished the value of that property being a residential usage.
That's really all the questions I had of Mr. Akoff.
Thank you.
I don't know if the board had any questions.
We will listen to all the testimony for your witnesses and then ask questions afterwards.
Ask questions afterwards? Okay. Then I'll ask Nick Rose, and I have to find him on my screen.
In a purple shirt.
There we go, Nick. I see you. Nick, can you explain by whom you are employed?
Protract Engineering in Hatboro, Pennsylvania.
And can you just give the board briefly a little history about your educational and employment background? And I'm going to put your CV up on the screen.
Sure. I've been doing this for quite a number of years. For 25 years, I've been the head of Protract Engineering, its owner and president, doing land development work. And prior to that, I worked at Metz Engineers in Lansdale for 10 years. I have a bachelor's from Penn State and a master's from Villanova University.
And you're a professional engineer licensed in Pennsylvania?
I am since 1989.
And can you just give some examples to the board of types of projects that you have worked on?
We've done quite a number of things, from just single lot site plans for people to 2-lot subdivisions, all the way up to large institutional developments, industrial developments, and residential developments, and commercial developments.
And have you previously testified before other zoning hearing boards or municipal bodies in Montgomery County?
I have many of them. I don't believe I have been in Plymouth, but I've been in pretty much all the surrounding ones: Norristown Municipality, Abington, Springfield, Cheltenham, Upper Moreland, Lower Moreland, just about everywhere. But I don't know if I've been in Plymouth yet.
And have you previously been accepted as an expert in civil engineering before those zoning hearing boards or municipal bodies?
I have, yes.
And I'd like to offer Mr. Rose as an expert in civil engineering.
Any questions by the board for Mr. Rose regarding his qualifications as a civil engineer?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. I mean, Mr. Chairman. He will be accepted as an expert in civil engineering. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
And Nick, you've been retained by the applicant to represent it for the purposes of the application before the zoning hearing board, correct?
Yes.
And you prepared a site plan for the property, correct?
We did.
And I'm showing that on the board, on the screen. This is the site plan that had been prepared by you for the property?
Correct. Dated June 18th of this year.
And briefly again, can you describe where the property is located?
529 Plymouth Road. I believe Bob gave the general description of where it is. It is surrounded by the office laboratory district.
And as indicated earlier, the tax map that we had provided as part of the exhibits shows the property located in yellow, correct?
Yes.
And then the zoning map we have circled in red and yellow, that's the property that we're speaking of tonight, correct?
Correct. That little yellow area is a residential.
And it's surrounded by other types, office laboratory and other types of zoning, correct?
Yes.
And again, this is the property that we're speaking of, 529 Plymouth Road.
Yes.
Yes. And then this is your site plan. Can you briefly describe for the board what the applicant is proposing for the property?
Sure. There is an existing dwelling on, well, the former dwelling on the property. What would happen is two smallish additions would be added to that first floor of that building. And then a second floor would be added that would encompass both the new additions and the existing dwelling for a total of 2,143 square feet on the second floor, which would then match the first floor. Additionally, behind that, there is an existing garage building that is 716 square feet in size. A second floor would be put on that for storage. And then associated with that, there is an existing driveway onto the property that would be widened to accommodate two-way traffic. And then there would be a parking lot put onto the site compliant with the township's requirements.
I'm sorry, could you say the last thing again? It faded out on mine.
Sorry, I said there would be 20 parking spaces
Oh.
put in the rear compliant with the township requirements.
Okay. And so I'm just going to point this out to the board. So the proposed addition of 157 square feet is where I'm showing my cursor, correct?
Yes, on the left side as you look at the plan.
And then the proposed building addition of 252 feet is where I'm showing the cursor?
Yes, on the right side of the building. Looking
And
at
I'm sorry, can you explain why you're adding those additions there?
that just takes a sort of a T shape and would make it into a full rectangle.
And then you indicate on your plan that there's a proposed full second story addition, correct?
Correct, of the entire area, yes.
And then that would, the 2,133 square feet for the floor?
2,143 square feet, but yes,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it. Yep.
And then you had indicated this is the garage we were talking about, and you're adding a second story to the garage.
Yes, the lower level would be used for 2 parking spaces and the upper level would be used for storage.
And on here, you showing proposed storm management area A and B. Can you explain what the stormwater management may be as you go through the land development process?
Sure, the project is actually fairly small. It's less than 8,000 square feet of new impervious, so it's really the size of maybe a large single-family dwelling. And what we have is 2 areas set aside, one within the parking area, which would be a stone bed underneath the parking area. And then should we need additional volume in the back, there is room to put a surface detention area where water could also drain into. We would work with the township's engineer to make sure that that was all compliant with their regulations. But there's more than enough area on the property to put in those 2 facilities.
And one of the reliefs that we're asking for is it related to impervious coverage. And so in your opinion, the proposed stormwater management areas that you're showing on the plan would be able to handle the impervious variance requests that we are asking for?
Yes, they would.
And briefly, we're also proposing a sign, and you had shown that on the plan, and I have a hard time seeing it myself, to be located at the, I apologize, I'm having a hard time seeing it.
The label's at the top of the plan.
Yes,
right?
there we go. It's right here. And as part of the process, we started to talk to Mr. Sal Paone, correct, after the township asked us about the widening of Plymouth Road and putting in curb and sidewalk, correct?
Yes.
So that sign would have to move, correct?
Yes, you can actually see to the right of the plan where the existing curb and sidewalk is on the neighboring property, right where your cursor is now.
Yep.
That would be extended across our property, and therefore that sign would need to come back a little bit, but it would still be within the ultimate right of way.
And so we would still need relief for that because it would be in the ultimate right of way and within 15 feet of the curb line, but behind the curb line.
Correct.
And in fact, we were able to get a copy of the PennDOT plan for Mr. Paone, correct? And for Mr. Reed's property.
Yes, I have seen that.
Yes. So we're going to have to work through, if the relief is granted, with Mr. Paone, who's doing the widening, curbing, and sidewalk along Plymouth Road. And we've agreed to work with Mr. Paone in reference to that as the township has requested, correct?
Yes.
And actually, let me show you a picture of the sign. This is a picture of the sign that the applicant was considering for the property, correct?
Yes, that is the general sign.
And that 529 is on the sign to show the location of the property located at 529 Plymouth Road, correct?
Yes, that would be what the proposed sign would look like.
And it's a double-sided sign,
Correct.
and it's
And it would
external,
be illuminated on both sides.
and it would be externally illuminated.
Correct.
And I think Mr. Sander may have said in the beginning, it's a 3-foot by 5-foot wide sign,
Yes, my understanding is that's the correct size.
and it'll be obviously at a height of 5 feet.
Right. Yes.
And I'm going to go through the variance requests that we're seeking. We're asking for a variance from section 500, the use regulations to prevent a business office at the property, correct?
Yes.
And we're asking for a variance from section 502F to allow 48.3%, whereas the permitted maximum impervious surface is 25%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And again, that's because we're zoned A residential at this time. So those standards are the A residential standards.
Yes, they are. They're actually significantly more lenient in the district that surrounds us, which I can tell you about if you'd like.
I'm sorry, which you can,
I said I could either describe that now or later if you'd like, but
yeah, you could go ahead and describe it now, Nick.
sure. They're actually mirror images of each other. In the residential district, we're allowed 25% impervious and we have to have 75% green. But in all the area that surrounds us, it's the opposite. We're allowed 75% impervious and have to keep 25% green. We're actually about halfway in between those, but we would be well within the compliance if we were in the office laboratory district.
And we're also seeking a variance from 502G, which is the green space area, which is the inverse of the impervious, correct?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that's to allow 51.7% green space, whereas 75% is required.
Right, it just fills out the other 100% from the impervious, yes.
And can you explain the variance from 502B for the front yard?
Yes, it's actually a
Okay.
very minor thing. The existing dwelling has a porch that's actually 34.8 feet from the ultimate right-of-way. But the building itself is not exactly parallel to the road. So at one end of it, I believe it is, let's see, 39.2 feet from the street line, and at the other end, it's 41.4 feet. So actually at one end, on the second level, if the proposed addition is approved, at the one end, it would actually be compliant at 41.4 feet, but at the left side, it would not be compliant at 39.2 feet. So technically, a variance would be needed at that corner of the building.
And again, we're not changing anything with the first floor of the building, correct?
Correct. This would just be on the second floor.
So the relief is needed because we're putting a second floor on the building, correct?
Exactly. The building itself would be no closer to the road. It would be the same.
And right, the second floor is not extending over where the first floor is located, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, we're maintaining what's existing there today on the first floor.
Yeah, so it would all be all one face as you looked at it.
So the relief is requested because you're adding the second floor, but nothing else is changing as to the location of the building.
Exactly.
And the property will be served by public water and public sewer, correct?
Yes.
And again, we recognize that the stormwater has to be addressed and will be addressed, correct?
Yes.
And you're comfortable in your professional opinion that we can meet the requirements for stormwater with this impervious coverage that we're asking relief for?
Yes, my opinion is we have more than enough room for that.
And we had briefly talked about the signage. We recognize that we need relief from section 1600 to allow the sign. Since we are in an A residential district, we're asking for more than is permitted, which I believe is the 127 square inches, correct?
Yes.
And again, we're still requesting a variance to allow the sign to be located within the right-of-way, although we recognize the sign will have to move once the widening occurs, but it will still be located within the right-of-way and within 15 feet to the curb line.
Yes, it would be.
And we're asking for relief from 1604A to allow the proposed sign to be externally illuminated, correct?
Yes.
And in your opinion, nothing changes as to the relief other than for the signage, as to the impervious or green coverage. with the widening of Plymouth Road, the installation of the curbs and sidewalks. You reviewed that, and the relief for the impervious and the green coverage doesn't change.
Correct. Those are all measured to the ultimate right of way as required.
And in your professional opinion, are the requested variances appropriate for the property?
Given the surrounding area, yes, they seem completely appropriate.
Is the property uniquely located as shown on the zoning map?
It is very unique in that it is surrounded by a district where this would be permitted, yes.
And it's a much smaller property than the other properties in the area?
Correct. It is very small relative to the ones around it.
And is the requested relief in keeping with the character of the neighborhood?
It is.
And in your opinion, is the requested relief the minimum to afford relief?
It is.
And in your professional opinion, will the requested relief be adverse to the public health, safety, or welfare?
No, it would not.
And that's all the questions I have of Nick. And the next person I would ask to testify is Al. And I just have to locate him on.
Hello.
Al, I'm just trying to find you, Al. Hold on 1 minute. Oh, there you are, Al. Okay.
How are you?
Good. And Al, can you just spell your last name for the court reporter?
Pereira, P-E-R-E-I-R-A.
And you're one of the listed purchasers of the property on the agreement of sale, correct?
Yes, correct.
And can you say the name of the gentleman who's also the other individual on the agreement of sale?
Guilherme Capellini.
And I think he was also on the call, correct?
Yes, he is.
I saw him earlier. So the agreement of sale, we provided a redacted copy of the agreement of sale, is subject to you obtaining zoning relief to use this as office, correct?
Correct.
And can you explain your relationship to Next Level Construction, Inc., that this property would be the office for?
I am co-owner. I'm the president.
And explain for the board, what does Next Level Construction, Inc. do?
We are mainly a framing company, framing subcontractor. We mostly frame apartment buildings for many builders in the area. And that's mostly of what we do.
And can you explain where you are currently located?
Currently, we're located on 527 Plymouth Road. It's about a block walk from the property in question. And we're actually the last tenant there in the building. Both of those two buildings are unoccupied except by us there.
And this, I'm showing the aerial which says current Next Level office, you're in this building?
Yes.
And the owner of that property is basically having all the tenants leave. They're no longer renegotiating or any leases or anything like that. All the tenants have left and you're the last one?
Correct. They're letting us stay. We're paying rent and staying there until they have to demolish it. But we've been looking for a place in Plymouth Meeting for a while, and it's hard to find.
And you want to remain in Plymouth Meeting?
Yeah, we really like Plymouth Meeting. I'm a resident there for about 10 years. I live, actually you can even see on that drone picture, the townhouse development in the back there. It's 100 townhouses. And so I live really close. I'm actually the president of the association there. And we're going to replace the stucco there for the second time this year. We did that 10 years ago and it's failed, and now I'm heading that effort. So I like to keep close, and my kids go to local schools as well. I have 2 boys in the middle school, and my girl is starting. Hopefully, at some point, she'll be starting on elementary.
And when in the proposed location at 529, it would only be office workers who would be at that location, correct?
Correct. It's only office. We'll occupy the entire first floor. And we like to have the second floor. We'll just do the shell walls, and eventually as we grow, as we hire more engineers and estimators, we're going to fully occupy the building in the future.
And can you explain for the board, who would be there when you first move over there? Who would be the office workers who would be there?
It will only be about 5 people, myself, 2 estimators, a salesperson, my partners. That's basically who's going to be working there.
And so the construction workers who do the framing wouldn't be coming to this property, correct?
No.
And I just wanted to show you the other photos. What are we seeing in the photo that I've just brought up on the screen?
Right there is the front of the property. There's a lot of overgrown trees there. You can't really see the house behind it right now. There's a lot of overgrown bushes.
And then this is the same property right here going in
Yes.
into the driveway. Okay. And then can you explain what the hours of operation would be at the property?
It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, are typical hours of operation.
And will there be any construction deliveries to the site?
Not at all.
Will there be any outdoor storage at the site?
No.
And as Mr. Rose had indicated, the garage will be used, I believe he said, for 2 parking spaces and the second floor for storage.
Correct.
And can you explain, as Mr. Rose did, what you're proposing for the additions to the
For the
property? Yes, these 2 additions.
Yes, that's just to make a rectangular shape instead of a T-shaped building for easier room configuration.
And you had provided drawings. And could you just explain to the board what we're seeing here?
That's a sketch of what we're going to have the architect work on. I mean, it's just a sketch. I'm sure he's going to do much better, I hope.
And then this picture, what did you want the board to know about this picture?
That's the finishes we like. It's more like a commercial look. The type of wall finishing, maintenance-free type of siding material that we would put on the building. And nothing extravagant. There'll be calm colors and an office look, like the buildings that they are renovating on 527 Plymouth Road. They did a good job renovating part of the buildings, and I'm sure they're going to put a nice building there. So we want to just match and belong in that area.
And as I had indicated earlier, the applicant's agreeable to the condition as to the widening of Plymouth Road, the installation of curbs and sidewalk to match up with the other properties on Plymouth Road, correct?
Correct.
And you'll work with the developer South Bayonne, who is doing that widening, curbing, and sidewalk, correct?
No problem with that.
And you recognize that, as Mr. Rose had indicated earlier, the sign will have to be relocated once we became aware of the widening of Plymouth Road, the curbing and sidewalk will have to be moved back, correct?
That's okay.
And you had provided a copy of what you would like the sign to look like, and as Mr. Rose had indicated, this is the sign. Something similar to this sign is what you're looking for the property, correct?
Correct. Just with floor lighting, nothing too bright, just so you can read it.
And can you just briefly explain why this property works for you?
It will be terrific to move from 527 Plymouth Road to 529 Plymouth Road. I feel like it's going to be a very easy transition for the employees. They don't like to go far. They like to stay close as well. And yeah, like I said, I'm a long-term resident of Plymouth Meeting. I love the town. We've been growing the business a good 20 to 30% every year. Yeah, I just love staying local. And that's it, pretty much.
And I just want to reiterate again, this property is for the office use. So it's for the office worker, your estimators, your bookkeeper, and things, and people who are working in the office. It's not for the construction workers, correct?
Not at all. Construction happens at the site. We work Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Most of our work right now is New Jersey, North Jersey, and that's where most of our work is right now.
And there wouldn't be construction deliveries of wood or anything like that to this office?
No, only to build it.
That's all the questions I had of Al.
Any further witnesses regarding that?
No, Mike.
Thank you. Let's see if the board has any questions. Ms. Pygott, do you have any questions?
I just have two. My first question is, I see that to the left of the property, if you're facing it, is the office complex that you're moving from. What's to the right of the property between your current resident or the building that's there, which is a residential property, and what's that street? Going toward Plymouth Elementary on that same side. Are there any other homes on that to the right of that property? I know
right now
there's commercial around there, but what about to the right of the property? Are there any other homes on that side of Plymouth Road?
Right now it's all woods. The next home, it's about I would say 200 feet or so, 200-300 feet.
Another home before you get to the stop sign, and I can't.
Yes.
That road, Johnson Road, maybe that is, I'm not sure what road that is, but there is a home that sits back as well.
I believe about at least 300 feet going towards the stop sign. Yes.
Okay, is that the only additional home on that little block, that section? There's only one before you get to the stop sign?
Yeah, as far as I remember, yes. An old home. It seems like it's not habited for a long time there.
Oh, so it's also a vacant property?
Yeah, I believe it's part of South Payons that they're going to demolish and put homes there.
Okay. And my other question was, the building that your proposed building, will you have a showroom for potential customers, or are you going to entertain customers to look at your products, or?
Not really. Not a showroom. No. We might receive clients there once in a while, maybe 1 or 2 meetings, 1 meeting a week or so. Usually 1 or 2 people come, but not much, not high volume traffic at all.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Pygott. Mr. Daly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pereira, is the current dwelling building that you're looking to occupy, is that a ranch style house, like just a 1-story?
Yes, it's a ranch style, 1-story.
Okay. I noticed that if you're not going to be, I know you're looking to modify the garage, but put up storage buildings outside. What's going to be stored in those? It's not going to be construction material.
Just tools, safety equipment, minor stuff that we usually keep around.
Okay.
Paperwork for the office, stuff like that.
Okay. And as far as the sign goes, it's external illumination. Is that that's not likely? No one, I guess, is likely to object to that because there probably aren't any neighbors around that would have on whom it would have a significant effect.
I'm sorry.
The illumination of the sign. I guess there aren't. I guess has anyone have any residents in the vicinity, assuming there are any, said anything about that, or is that not likely to be an issue for anybody?
It shouldn't be. There's this school across the street, and adjacent to that, there is a really big sign from Plymouth Ridge office complex. Our sign will be very modest. It's more to show the location and all. And the illumination will be just one lamp on each side, just pointing to the side, to the sign. So it's not going to disturb drivers or anything. It's just going to help people see the sign more clearly.
Okay. No, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Pereira.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Mr. Aprile.
Yep, thank you, sir. How you doing, Bernadette? Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Dominic.
He's frozen.
For a residential property, this is not requesting a home office. This is requesting a commercial, basically a commercial building. So why wouldn't you go in and get a zoning change? Why would you come here with all these variance requests?
So what ended up happening is, and I think Dave, when we originally started this process, it was in March. And I said, I had asked Dave, should I come in for the rezoning? And nobody was sure what was happening in March. So we decided we would just come in for the zoning relief. Because we weren't sure what was going to happen with townships. We're going to, we just didn't know because it was the start of COVID.
We also figured that would be a quicker and easier process. Mr. Reed has gone to I guess, a care facility, and I believe his daughter is going to use the proceeds of the sale for his treatment. And it's pending on that now. So that's also one key factor that we felt that we could get it point off that we could get it done sooner.
Yeah, that was the other thing, the timing of it. We thought we could get it done sooner because we just didn't know what was going to happen with COVID.
Okay, so facing the property, I haven't seen a plot plan or a tax map that shows the zoning down the street, the zoning across the street. I keep hearing it's surrounded by laboratory, and I keep thinking of the house in Atlantic City that they built a casino around, but I don't think that's the case here.
Across the street is residential. On this side, on the side of the street they're located on, it's office laboratory.
So across the street is residential, correct?
Yeah.
Well, may I address that?
Sure.
Bernadette? As you look across the street, there is a school. To the right of that, there's a street that goes into a development, but then to the right of that are apartments, I believe. And there may be one or two houses to the left of the school, but the bulk of the development in the area is either apartments or office space or the school.
And who is this, Bob Acuff?
It is, yes, yes.
I think this is at the end of a residential zoning district, and I'm trying to find out. There's a little bit of misinformation here, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something. But I thought from it was discussed with the first question from Plymouth Road.
The right of the property, you mean?
Can't think of the road. Thank you. To the right of the property is, Denise, is all residential. Is that not correct?
So the right of the property is, well, there's to the right of the property, there's actually, this parcel is surrounded by the office laboratory zoning district.
Okay, so how many parcels are to the right of this parcel? How many tax parcels to the end of the corner?
You mean this?
No, I mean the other way, towards
this way?
Not toward Germantown Pike, the
Yeah,
opposite.
Google Earth shows it really nice. I mean, there's a house on the corner, there's a flag lot behind it. It's all residential, and I thought Bayonne was coming all the way up to this house.
No, the office zoning district surrounds this parcel. So
I'm
Pan
going to
does
ask the
not,
question again. Is this Bob Akoff? What
Yes,
is
I'm
to the
sorry.
right, and how many more lots are there to the end? You're the real estate expert.
so the Driscoll tract is, so to the right of this house is the office zoning district. To the right of that is the Driscoll property.
Is that residential or is that a part of the commercial district?
That is residential.
Okay, so the Driscoll tract is residential. Then you cross the street and then you got the big Driscoll tract, correct? That he's building right now, where the houses are in right now.
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, and then directly across the street, next door to Colonial, this is correct?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me.
If you're facing Colonial Elementary,
Correct.
to the left, they just built 3 new houses. Is that correct?
Probably about
Plymouth
4 or 5
Elementary,
years
Dom?
ago.
That's correct.
Okay, 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Okay, and across the street from those houses, how many houses are there?
I don't have any, I'm not aware of any houses across from there.
There's at least 2 because I'm looking at them on Google Earth.
Okay.
One's a flag lot. Then you have a lot that must be zoned with extra. How come?
We lost you, Dom.
Froze.
Dom's frozen.
Lost him.
Yeah, and I think to address that, we recognize that across the street is residential. What we're getting at is that what is surrounding it, and I think, Nick, you showed on the plan also, is that it's office laboratory.
Yes.
But we've lost Mr. Aprile.
Yes, yeah.
Spaces between
We lost you, Dom.
and Payonne's property?
Dominic, do you want to ask your question again? Because we lost you.
I was just curious how many lots are to the right of this property, and I thought they were all residential. I'm finding out that one is not residential. Is it just one lot that's not residential?
Well, no, I think if you look at the subject parcel, it's like you're sticking a thumb in a pie. And so to the left of the thumb is office laboratory. To the right of the thumb is office laboratory. Beyond the office laboratory area, it becomes residential.
Bernadette, can you zoom in that map a little? They'll visualize that better.
Yeah, I can't zoom in on the map.
Let me ask you a question to try to clarify this. It doesn't look like it's a lot. It looks like it's an access way or a flag pole leading to area behind the subject property. It's not a full lot. See the little.
But it's part of the zoning district.
No. And I'm not saying it's not part of the zoning district,
Right.
but I think Mr. Aprili's question is how many is there? What is the next lot zoned? And there's really not a lot there. The next full lot is zoned A residential. It's a little flag entrance to the industrial park on the other side. Now, I don't know whether it's a physical entrance, but the property comes out to Plymouth Road as a flag.
Right. Yeah, for some reason in the township's wisdom prior years, this parcel was never addressed. So I can't say it's really a flag, it's just part of the overall parcel of the office laboratory area.
Right, I understand it's part of that parcel, and it doesn't appear to be an access, but it's just a little thin strip of land between the subject property and the area zoned A residential that is above it. Or no, A residential labels this property, it's B residential above it, going
That's
toward
correct.
the Pico right-of-way.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Sander, it's a correct statement to say that this is entirely surrounded on that side of Plymouth Road by the office laboratory zoning class, albeit by a small strip on the one side, but it is
Correct.
100% surrounded by office laboratory.
Correct. That's right.
So where were we? Dom, Mr. Aprile, did you have any further questions?
It's maybe muted.
Dominic's muted again. Can we unmute him?
Yep, got him.
All right,
Thank you.
Dom.
Is this my connection making the problem, or is it Zoom? I'm just
Nobody really
curious.
knows, Dom. It's
Okay.
it's a toss-up.
I guess my issue is it looks like they want to put a 2-story office building across the street from houses and across the street from elementary school that was never there before. And the future development up the street is more houses. That's my issues. That's all. No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ramondo.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. What's directly to the left, the corner part between the Plymouth Ridge? Is there a house in those woods, or is that just all woods?
That's
All
all
woods.
My audio's cutting now. Did anybody answer that?
They said it's woods.
It's all woods, and is that owned by the Plymouth Ridge office complex, or is there a resident? Is that a lot? Like, is that a resident lot?
It's part of the office district, and it butts up against the current office park.
And then this house is the first house coming from out of that Plymouth Drive.
That's correct.
Office complex driveway.
Correct.
So the variance says to allow a business office. Currently, it's zoned residential, correct?
Correct.
So will this change the zoning category to business zoning or commercial zoned permanently, or will it just be a variance?
It's a variance.
Just a variance, Dave. The zoning will remain A, residential. It will have a variance to operate a business use, if granted.
So if the property gets sold, will be sold still as a residential, or will be sold as a commercial property?
Well, it can be sold as a commercial property because
zoning
it will
go
have
with-
received a variance, but the underlying zoning is A, so that if this use is abandoned, it becomes a legal argument about whether it reverts back to the underlying zoning. If they tear everything down, do they have to comply with underlying zoning? That depends on what the zoning ordinance says about that. But they would be able to operate a business use even though the underlying zoning would be a residential.
Yeah, if I might interject, this is not a commercial location, so I don't want there to be any confusion. The use that they're suggesting is consistent with what the balance of that ground will be developed. I mean, tomorrow somebody could come in and apply for or submit a plan to the township, and they're allowed to build office laboratory there. So this use is absolutely consistent and in line with the current zoning that surrounds this parcel.
Right, and I don't think it's proposed to be commercial at all. It's a business use. It's an office.
Yes, but the word
office
commercial popped
use.
up a couple times, and I wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah, commercial is not, no, it's not commercial. It's not a commercial use. Dave Conroy, what is the use, Dave, if you don't mind me asking, the use category? The application said business use. Is it more accurately an office use?
You could say it's an office use, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Sander, I wrote down business office.
Business office, okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Ramondo.
With this setback, once you guys redo the sidewalk and everything, does that setback number change? Or is it still come?
Nick Rose, the setback is measured from the ultimate right-of-way line, so that does not change. It would be closer to the curb, but that's not what the setback is measured from.
Right.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. have some concern about making either a left turn coming out of this or a left turn from Plymouth Road into this site. I know that there's a left turn lane, I believe, down for the office complex. Is there any talk or any requirement or anything that would address that issue? Is there any problem possibly with making a left turn into this site?
Nick Rose, you would have minimal traffic here. I'm not even sure if it would have the same number of trips as a single residential unit with just 5 or 6 employees, even if you went up higher than that. So I'd have to look at the plans to see if they have envisioned any kind of turning movement there, but I don't see why you couldn't turn out of there.
Just looking at it, you talk about having 20 parking spaces, and I know that you're going to have a bunch of additional houses built on the track, 2 tracks over. So, and I'm looking at the photograph that you have up on the screen. It's hard to tell what the level is, and I can't remember because I couldn't figure out where the property was when I drove by the other day.
It is difficult to see from the road where the property is. It's set back, the house is set back, because I've driven by it several times.
Right, I was trying to find it, and I wasn't sure exactly which property it was, so that's why I couldn't tell whether it looked like there might be difficulty making a left turn into it or coming out of it, either way. Because coming out of it, you got to make a left turn. You got the traffic coming down Plymouth Road too, so that was my concern there. I'm just curious, because it is in a residential district, getting back to Mr. Acuff, how long was it listed for sale, and did you receive any offers?
It was on the market for over 8 months, and we received 0 offers. And I had absolutely no interest from any consumer in the market. Again, think about it for yourself. Would you buy a property that someday may be surrounded completely by office buildings? It's just not the environment for residential usage.
Well, getting back to Mr. Aprilli's comments, I can't buy 100% surrounded by office buildings because on the one side, it is a very limited strip between that and the residential use. So I can't see on the one side, closer towards Plymouth Elementary, you really couldn't build an office building there.
No, absolutely, you're correct. But it could end up being an access road, and there could be and there's going to be some sort of office or laboratory that's going to be directly behind it and to the left-hand side. So you are going to be enveloped by a non-residential use, and a typical consumer is not going to have any interest in something like that.
Hey, Bob, how big is that lot to the right that we're talking about right now? How big is that lot?
Well, it's about a 50 or 75 foot strip.
How many acres is it? Is it acreage? Do you know the size? Do you know the size of the lot we're talking about?
Well, it's not a lot per se. It's a parcel that surrounds this property. And so, I don't know, it's probably 5 to 7 acres at least.
That's the best map to show it. That strip to the left, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, that's part of the office laboratory zoning. So whether they, it seems likely that they're going to put some sort of access road in there, and they're going to put some sort of office laboratory directly behind this parcel. So it's really going to be, you're asking, or it is a residential usage within a sea of office laboratory. And that just doesn't make sense today. When Mr. Reed bought this many years ago, it was a different world, a different environment. And as I've talked to Al about this, I think that this really cleans up a use that should have been changed many years ago and just wasn't for whatever reason.
Dominic, I just want to point this out to you. See how NL, Exeter, Plymouth, LP owns this property, this block 36, unit 9, this property, right. And they also own this. So that when Bob's talking about that strip here, and then they own the property back here.
So that's not a very wide strip, and the side of that strip is residential. That's not a very wide strip.
That's not true.
This isn't residential. This is office laboratory.
No, to the left of that.
Yes, this is over here is right. But what is this strip right here and right here? What Exeter owns is office.
And I'm just trying to say that strip is not very wide. You know, maybe they could put an emergency access there, maybe not, but they haven't developed it in all these years. That office complex has been back there for a long time.
Well,
Let
as
me
I think
clarify
they said,
Let me clarify something for the record first before you go, Bob. The owner of the strip is Exeter 531 Plymouth LP. The owner down below is Exeter 521 Plymouth LP. They are owned by different entities. I don't know what that means. It doesn't change the zoning, but I want the record to be accurate and reflect that the strip, that 75-foot wide strip, and the property behind the subject property are owned by different entities.
And the property behind it goes all the way around it.
I worked there. I worked right behind this house. I know exactly what this is.
Mhm.
well, as I started to say,
Sorry.
um,
Mr. Acuff,
the Al's moving from this office complex because they're going to tear it down and do something with it. And whether this surrounding parcel may be involved or not, it just isn't a residential usage, even though 75 feet away the zoning changes. My experience is they're either going to put a road or something in along the side of that to provide access to a building, and it's just not an appropriate use for a house today.
I have a different question about it because it is sort of an island unto itself. You know, when you have the properties where Sal Paone is building, or you go across the street to Falcon Way, they're part of a distinct neighborhood. This is a single house out on its own, and I do wonder whether it would be an appropriate place to have a family, because you're cut off from that the B residential South Bayonne site or the Falcon Way site. I mean, you're certainly not going to have kids going across Plymouth Road there. It's a difficult thing to drive through. I don't know how they could ever walk across it. There's no traffic lights or anything. So I just wonder whether it is a good, I know it's zoned A residential, but whether it makes sense to keep it as a residential property, given what's on that side of the street, that part of the block. I mean, the whole Plymouth Woods office complex is there. That's what I'm looking at, and I'm saying, you know, maybe the township should have rezoned it, and then they didn't. But they should have done a remapping and maybe make it part of the office laboratory zoning class, and maybe they left it A residential, reflecting what was there. I don't know. I can't speak for the township council, but it just strikes me that it's a difficult site if you want to try and live there, given its location not being part of any of these other neighborhoods. And even if, you know, I don't know what they're going to do, whether they'd actually use that access strip. My gut reaction is they're not going to, because you come in and you got a whole bunch of, you got two access points, one off of Gravers and one off of Plymouth Road. I don't think they would add a third on that little strip. It'll probably remain sort of vacant forever, but it just strikes me as a tough place for a house. I mean, just given its location. It's not part of the Paone neighborhood, and it's not part of Falcon Way, and it's not part of the houses that they build up going towards Johnson Road that all run together. It's an island unto itself, and that's what, you know, concerns me. And it's down below, really. It's across from the elementary school property, but not across from the school itself. So it just worries me that the zoning doesn't make sense, given how it's an outlier type of property. And it does seem like a low impact business type use. I mean, that's they're just a little worried about the traffic coming in and out. But I do think that the testimony about it being listed for 8 months is indicative of the problem of trying to sell it as a residence. It could be that they wanted too much money, because everything seems to sell at a certain price, but
Well, I have a lot of experience over the years, and this was not a price issue. This was, it's functionally obsolete, and we had no interest for a consumer to come and purchase the property.
I think that you had a functionally obsolete property at Plymouth Road and Johnson Road, where those three houses are now. It used to be one single family house, and eventually it got sold and torn down. And 3 houses were built where that house, the original single-family, one-story old rancher, was functionally obsolete. So I don't think a functionally obsolete home in and of itself is a reason why I wouldn't necessarily sell.
No, I misspoke. I meant the location is functionally obsolete, not the house itself.
Because I believe the house is probably functionally obsolete as a residence. But I'm just, yeah, I have some problems about the desirability of this as a residential property and the safety of it as a residential property, really. If you have little kids, I mean, yeah, Plymouth Road's right there, and it's not as though you have any neighbors. Like the 3 houses down on the other side of Plymouth Road, they all run into each other. Those 3 houses or the houses across the way on Falcon Way, they have a cul-de-sac there. You don't have that here. That's one of the things that worries me is just how functional is it as a residence given its location. So that's, I guess, my comment. I won't have any further. Mr. Sander, do you have any comments beyond where we've been?
One that seems, I think, obvious, but I don't know if it was directly asked. Will there be any construction equipment on this, stored or parked or otherwise coming onto this property?
No, just pickup trucks at most. No construction equipment.
Okay, so only pickup trucks?
Small pickup trucks, not.
Okay, well, small pickup trucks or large pickup trucks. Why are pickup trucks coming to what amounts to an office? Other than that's a person's passenger vehicle?
Exactly. Personal vehicles.
Okay, but they're not coming to have stuff put in the back and taken off site. Work equipment. In other words, they're not being brought to the property loaded with tools and equipment that's being kept in the storage and then taken off this property to a construction site.
No. Not, maybe occasionally they'll store something, but not on a regular basis.
Because a lot of times these things have a way of coming around at 4 or 5 in the morning to get an early start, to get loaded up and to go up to New Jersey, North Jersey, where you're working. They've got to be there at 4 in the morning, and that's when people complain about noise and idling vehicles. So I just wanted to make sure that there's not going to be any vehicles that are used in the actual construction aspect of your business located on the property.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Just want to say that the application itself did say there would be no exchange or delivery of merchandise on the property.
Correct.
Al, if I might interject, they currently run this operation right behind this property, and so there's been no issues with the current landlords, so I think they're going to continue to do the same thing.
Well, we need to know what they are going to do, so that's why I asked the question.
I mean, my understanding was Mr. Pereira said there were going to be tools there. So is it possible that the people with pickup trucks will be coming and picking up tools? More than, I mean, it's not they're going to be loaded with framing equipment, frames, but.
Not frequently. We have just when we finish a project that there is leftover tools that will only be used for a different project, then it gets brought.
Safety.
But it's like every few months, safety equipment mostly. Our projects are fairly large. Everything gets delivered to the site. They are, if you look at our website, www.nextlevelconstruction.net, you'll see the projects we do, and we usually have storage container on site for every project where we store things there. So there is no nothing significant storage. Is more like personal protection equipment, ropes and
lasers,
laser levels, stuff like that.
Okay, as the applicant, if relief is granted, and I don't know that, conditions sound like they would be that, first of all, you'd have to comply with the township solicitor's letter specifically stating that you shall construct curbs, sidewalks, and widen Plymouth Road at the property. Also, that you obtain final and unappealable land development approval for the use. Next, that this is only to be used as an office, that there be no construction, deliveries, or exchange of merchandise on the property, and that there be no outdoor storage of any kind, and the garage only be used for parking and on the first floor, and storage of tools, equipment, and paperwork on the second floor.
Well, Dave, on the obtain final land development approval, we were considering asking Mr. Conroy if we could waive the land development procedure or do a modified version of that. And I forgot what Dave had called it, and I apologize. It's like a building permit procedure.
Well, that's fine. Why don't we just say a final unappealable land development approval or a waiver thereof? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you have any further comments on Mr. Sander? Because I want to see if we had any public comment as well.
No, those were the, I just wanted to sort of get that out there, see if the applicant had any reaction to those conditions, and by all means, public comment.
Al, I actually made a comment. Are those conditions acceptable as I modified the obtaining of the land development approval?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on this application? I know there were some people online.
So I was concerned about having a lighted sign there 24/7.
Wait, hold on, Mr. Reichert. Hold on. This is a different proceeding, so we've got to get your name for the record again.
Sorry.
Please.
David Reichert,
And your address?
1517 Plymouth Boulevard.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reichert.
Thank you. We were just concerned about the lighting of the sign 24/7. The other, the new development going up by Payone and the apartment, the office development right below there, I don't believe those signs are lighted. And I just don't know why they need a 24/7 lighted sign, very truthfully. And I'm also concerned about 20 parking spots for 5 people and the, getting on and off, making left or right-hand turn into that area. It's right by the school. And I'm also concerned about how the residents of Falcon Way have all been advised of this transaction. And as Payone bought into it also.
Well, couple quick things, Mr. Reichert. The parking is what's required under the zoning code. That's why they have 20 spaces proposed, because that's the required number under the zoning ordinance. So they're in compliance with the ordinance by having 20 parking spaces. Goes by the size of the building, and that's what the code requires. So they do not need a variance for parking, but that's why they did it. I would assume, Dave, on Falcon Way that they got notice in the mail.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They don't get notice of the transaction. They get notice of the application for the zoning relief. They don't get notice of the actual transaction. They get notice of the zoning relief. That would have been sent out whenever the township is required to send out the notices. And I know the property was posted because I saw the sign on the property when I drove by. So, beyond that, the other questions, Bernadette and the applicant can answer.
I will tell you, Mr. Payone, I have been talking to him, and our office does represent him, about the widening. He was happy to hear that he'd been having trouble reaching Mr. Reed because he's in a nursing home. He's ready to do the widening curb and sidewalk, so he was happy to hear that. He, in fact, called, I believe, the township manager, Karen Weiss, today to say he's happy that this property is now going to be going forward. And I explained the use to him. He said, that's great. I'll call Karen and give her my support of this application. I think at one point, the township may have asked Mr. Payone to buy the property, but it really didn't make sense for him residentially to buy it. So he didn't want to buy it. So he was happy that it's going to be used as an office and that the plans for the widening and sidewalk and curb can be completed at this time.
Any further questions, Mr. Reichert?
No, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, hearing none. And Dave Conroy, do you have any other comments before we move on?
Just to clarify what was just brought up, I was going to bring up the whole land development thing, but we already covered that. But the illumination of the sign, it can't be on, it can't be illuminated after 11 o'clock at night or before 7 o'clock in the morning, as per the township zoning ordinance. Or basically 1/2 hour after the time at which the premises is closed to the public. So if you go, yeah, it just can't be illuminated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. If the applicant's okay with that, we're good.
And Al, you're okay with the timing of the illumination, the external illumination of the sign?
Sure.
And that's all I have, Mike.
Thank you.
That's ordinance, Dave, right? That's not, that doesn't need to be, that's he has to comply with the ordinance. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Sander?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
And anything further from the board? All right. That being the case, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the variances requested, subject to the additional stated conditions here. Variances from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 5, sections 500, 502, 502B, 502F, 502G, Article 16, sections 1600, 1603 point B, and 1604 point A. The variances are to allow a business office with a front yard setback of 39.2 feet where a minimum of 40 feet is required, to allow 48.3% impervious coverage where a maximum of 25% is allowed, to allow 51.7% green space where a minimum of 75% is required, to allow a 30 square foot double-sided externally illuminated sign closer than 15 feet from the curb line and within the street right of way where a maximum of 125 square inches is allowed.
And subject to the letter of August 14th?
Yes, subject to letter of August 14th.
And I believe the conditions that were previously read and agreed to by the applicant.
Yes, and the conditions that were previously read and agreed to by the applicant at this meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the motion?
That's a tough one. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. And just to be clear, Mr. Romano, you can second the motion. You don't have to vote in favor of it. You can make a motion. Just true. So it's clear. There's no requirement.
No, I mean it's a tough one. I want to see it do well. It's definitely a pickle. It's a little bit of a tough one, just the way it's rolled out. I'd like to see the zoning change before the business, but I feel like we're doing it in reverse. Not that I'm completely against it, but I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I just want to make it clear, seconding it doesn't mean you wrote for it. Anyway, so
No,
have a roll call vote. Ms. Paga,
In favor.
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile. Is he on?
I think he's frozen.
I don't see his picture.
I see his picture.
His picture's
There he is.
frozen.
He's moving.
Dominic, your vote.
Opposed.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. We're having a rough time.
The internet keeps going out.
We're having a rough time with you tonight. Anyway, Mr. Ramondo.
I'm in favor.
Okay, and the chair votes in favor. Good luck. I do think this is a difficult property and difficult location and got a lot of challenges, and which is why the board had some questions and issues with it. But good luck with it and good luck with your business.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad
Thank you very much.
It's good you're keeping
Thank you,
business
everybody.
into this township.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I believe we are done for the evening.
Correct.
Sixers lost.
Hit the gavel.
Oh.
Go Celtics.
You're just wrong, Dave.
It's only because they're green like the Jets.
Killing you, Mr. Conroy.
I'll see everyone
Yes,
next
yeah.
month.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Thank you.
We
Have a good night.
adjourned. We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Good
guys.
night. Have a good one, guys.
Okay, thank you,
Be
Mr.
healthy.
Parrish.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.